Hi, my name is James. I'm a network engineer, and in this video I'd like to talk about IPv6 instead of a Windows domain using GNS3 and a Juniper vMX. Motivation for creating this, I was trying to set up IPv6 and I learned there's a lot I didn't know about it. So I started learning and taking notes and doing some labs, and during the process I kind of realized that my notes came out to be about 12 pages long by the time I was done. So I went ahead and turned those into an article. You can find that link below. It's currently on my GitHub, and I also have it up on Spiceworks. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to set up IPv6 in a Windows-based environment and try and share a little bit of what I've learned. As you can see on my screen, we're using GNS3. I have Windows Server 2016 installed on here and Windows 10 with Edge installed on here. If you don't know how to install either one of these, it's pretty straightforward. You go to New Template, Install Appliance. We're going to hit Next. We're going to select Server, Windows Server. I'm going to hit Install. I'm going to install on my main server. You can install it wherever you want. You come over here and you tell it you want to download the files. It'll take you to the location where you need to download the files. It's like right here, you'd want to download this as an ISO and you'd be good to go. And then just upload it there. You can do the same thing right here and then you're done. When it comes to importing Windows 10 with Edge, I'll show you how to do that. It's a little bit different. You're going to want to select the version you want. You're going to select download. It's going to take you to the download page for that one. And once we're there, we're going to select the virtual machine you want, and you need to choose the correct platform. GNS3, it wants to see this VMware platform right here. So this is what you're going to want to download, and it's going to have the files you're going to want to upload for that. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started on the lab. Create a new lab. We'll call it IPv6 lab. Hit OK. There we go, we got it started. So I'm going to start by throwing this Server 2016 out here, largely because it takes a long time for it to boot. So the way this version of Server 2016 is handled is you install it fresh every time you go to create a topology. So that means we're going to have to go through the setup process for Server 2016. It's not super difficult. It is a little bit time consuming. This particular installation requires you to have a 100 gig empty file on your GNS3 server. If you don't have enough room for that on your server, this process will crash. You don't have to do this with Server 2016. You can use any other box that you can get DHCP out of, DHCPv6 out of, and it'll work just as well. So let's go ahead and go through the process of setting this up. Let's select English. You're welcome to change it. Just select Install Now. We want to do Server 2016 Desktop Experience. If you're using 2012 or 2019, this will be the same. You just still want to make sure you're selecting Desktop Experience. We're going to accept the terms, do a custom install, create a new partition, and then it'll make its own partitions. You'll see right here that this is still a 100 gigabyte drive. So keep in mind, you need to have at least 100 gigabytes of free space on your GNS3 server. I'm going to select next, and that's going to start. All right. Well, that's right. Let's go ahead and set up the rest of our topology. We're going to do 2 Windows 10 boxes. We are going to want an Ethernet switch and connect all these to this Ethernet switch. Doesn't matter which port, it's just a dumb switch. We're going to want our Juniper vMX. Remember, this is 2 parts. This is the forwarding plane and the control plane. We want to connect the vMX VCP to the VFP via EM1. And we're going to go ahead and start both of those. Awesome. We're also going to want to set up 2 virtual PCs out here. These are going to simulate the IPv4 and the IPv6 WANs. Connect GE001 here to the Windows domain, GE002 to the IPv6, GE003 to IPv4. Awesome. We got that out of the way. Let's go ahead and assign some IP addresses here. So we're going to come up here. We're going to say IPv4 WAN. We're going to give this address 172.16.0.2/24. Similarly down here, we're going to do IPv6 WAN. Give an address of 2002 db8 2/64. Here on the left hand side, let's just go ahead and define what this interface on the Juniper is going to be. It's also going to define the network out here. So we're going to make this 2001 db8 1. We're going to make this dual stacked. So let's go ahead and add the 10.0.0.1/24. So those are the 2 networks that are going to be out here. Let's also say we're going to assign. Let's also say we're going to assign a static IP to the Windows Server 2016. So let's go ahead and assign it the address and the IPv6 address of 2001 db8 2/64 and the IPv4 address of 10.0.0.2/24. All right. So it looks like Windows is still installing. Let's go ahead and set everything else up. Got a console in here to PC1. I'm going to start PC1, then console in. We're going to assign its IP address. So we've got, let's shrink this so we can see both. We're going to do an IP 2002 db8 2/64, the default gateway 2002 db8 1. We're going to save that. Let's do the same thing with this IPv4 WAN client. We're doing IP 172.16.0.2 with the default of 172.16.0.1. Cool. Let's save that one. Now we have both of our WAN clients set up and ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and start these Windows boxes. We're going to come back to them later. Let's see how our vMX is doing, see if it's ready for us to start working on it. Alright, looks like the answer there is no. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and I'm going to unpause it in a few. And we'll go through the process of setting up this vMX how we want it to. Alright, and it looks like after that it's ready to go. So let's go ahead and log in. Remember, default login this is root, no password. I'm going to show interfaces. We're going to see that our GEs are up right there. You can see that we have addresses on EM1, which means that the FPC and the control plane module and the forwarding plane module are successfully connected. So let's go ahead and start configuring this Juniper. It's going to bug us about this command, delete chassis auto image upgrade. And then we'll stop getting all these errors. Alright, once we get done with that, let's go back and look at our topology again. Alright, we'll see we're going to have three interfaces. Here, 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 and here. So let's go ahead and configure those. Alright, so the first interface is going to be GE001. Alright, on GE001, we're going to have an IPv4 and an IPv6 address. So let's go ahead and set the IPv4 address. And let's set the IPv6 address. Alright, we have those two addresses set. Let's go back. We know on GE002 that's going to go to our IPv6 WAN. So let's go ahead and set an address for that. And for our IPv4 WAN on GE003, we'll set our address for that as well. Alright, once we get all that in, we're going to go ahead and do a real quick commit. Alright, now we've committed. So, we have this IPv4 WAN and IPv6 WAN. Let's see if from the Juniper, if we can ping those. So we're going to do a ping 172.16.0.2. Looks like that's a success. We're going to do a ping 2002 db8 1:2. Looks like that one's also a success. So from the Juniper, we now have connectivity to both of these nodes right here. Let's go back and look at the Windows set a little bit more. This is the server. It's almost done installing. All we need to do is add a password. Then we can finish it. Or Control Delete. So I'm going to start by just assigning static by sending a static IP on this thing and then taking a look at how the network looks. So we're going to do this. So when we start, we're going to assign a static IPv4 and a static IPv6. We are not going to assign a static IPv6 default gateway. The reason we're not going to define this is because when we enable router advertisements on the Juniper, it will define itself and it really becomes something we don't have to worry about. You can assign it manually, however, you don't have to. So for our instances, I'm not going to. Alright, so we're going to open Network and Sharing Center. Let's recenter this. Change adapter settings. So let's pull this back. Yeah, there we go. Go to Properties. Go to IPv4, and we're going to put in 10.0.0.2 with a default of 10.0.0.1. Going to v6, we're going to put in 2001 db8 :2 stroke 64, and we're going to leave the default gateway blank. You're going to see why here in just a minute. Hit OK. Okay, we should be good to close out all this. Let's open PowerShell and verify our changes. So here at ipconfig/all, we're going to see we have an IPv4 default gateway, only one. We're going to see we have a link local IPv6 address, a regular IPv6 address, and looks like that's about it. Alright, let's hop in on one of these Windows clients and see what they look like. These guys are going to have a default password. I'm going to show it on screen here for just a second. It's also going to be in the notes down below. Let's make sure I can remember it. Capital PASSW0RD exclamation point. Let's log in. So what we expect to see when we log in is we expect to see that nothing's working. There's currently no SLAAC. There's currently no DHCP running on this server. There we go. I'm going to right click on Start. Select PowerShell. Then once PowerShell opens, we're going to do an ipconfig/all just to verify there's no addresses on any of the interfaces. Unfortunately, it doesn't really run faster than this, so this is what we get. What's important is that it's functional. It does the things. And also, it's not about how much power you have running the GNS3 server. You can see right here, I'm running very little power off this server. You can provision these virtual machines to have more power if you want. But for what I do, I like how it's plug and play out of the box. It's easier for me to share them like this. It makes them more portable. There we go. Doing ipconfig/all. And we'll see on there we have an IPv6 link local address, no DHCP address, no default gateway. So let's go ahead and add DHCP into this. So we're going to go back to the Windows server. We're going to add roles and features. We're going to add DHCP and DNS. Alright, cool. We're going to let this install. This will take just a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and pause and come back when it's done. Alright, that was a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. It was about 5 minutes. All those features are installed, so we're going to go ahead and close. Lower that. Lower this. Go to the start menu. See if I can't open the DHCP control panel. And we're going to go ahead and set up the DHCPv6 on here. So we're going to go to IPv4. We're going to define a new scope. IPv4 lab, we're going to have this start at 10.0.0.10 and end at 10.0.0.254 with a subnet mask of 24. Gonna hit next, next, next. We need to add the default gateway 10.0.0.1. Alright, that's in there. Next. Next. We want to activate this scope. We're going to hit finish. Alright, and IPv4 should be good. Let's check on one of our clients now. While we're waiting on that thing to do its thing, let's go ahead and set up IPv6. New scope. Alright, so our prefix here is 2001 DB8 ::64. We're just going to make the starting address FFFF. We're going to have it end at FFFF:/FFFF. That should be enough addresses. If you'll notice in here, it did not give us an option for default gateway. You'll see why here in just a minute. So over here on this machine, we're going to do that again. Hopefully it'll run a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Alright, we see that it has an IPv4 address of 10.0.0.11. doesn't look like it's picked up an IPv6 address quite yet. Looks like we've got our scope set up. Let's try that again. So it may be possible that the DHCP server is not going to communicate until we set up router advertisements, which is 100% believable. So let's go ahead and set up router advertisements now. Back on the Juniper, we're going to zoom in here a little bit. We're going to go back into configure, and we're going to set up router advertisements. So set up router advertisements, we want to go into protocols, router advertisement, interface, and we have to set up router advertisements per interface. So this is interface GE-0-0-1. Hit enter. So we're going to go ahead and set our prefix. We're going to set prefix 2001 db8 : stroke 64. We're going to commit this. Alright, so at this point the vMX is now sending out router advertisements. So we're going to come back over here and we're going to see what this Windows host has done. So we're going to do an ipconfig/all, and all of a sudden we see a bunch of different IPv6 addresses, which is exactly what we wanted. We're going to test connectivity to our IPv6 WAN and our IPv4 WAN. We're going to go ahead and do that now. So we're going to, this is from a completely DHCP client. We're going to do ping 172.16.0.2. Success. And we're also going to ping 2002 db8 2. We're going to see success on that one as well. You will see for default gateway, this has the link local address of this interface on the Juniper. That's normal. You're welcome to change that if you want. I couldn't figure out how to change that in the Juniper specifically, but this is standard procedure, and this is how SLAAC always does it. So if we come over here and look in our Windows host, we should only see one lease used up for IPv6. Well, 2 leases used up. Let's look at our leases. We have a lease that ends in 9E05 and one that ends in B891. So here we have a lease that ends in 9E05, but here's another IPv6 address that ends in AE8. That means one of these addresses is a SLAAC address. One of these addresses is a DHCP address. So let's dig in a little bit deeper. We're going to do a net sh. I'm going to look at interface IPv6. We're going to do a show addresses. This will show us our 4 different types of addresses. We have public, DHCP, temporary, and other. Public is our IPv6 address that's determined by SLAAC. SLAAC uses EUI64, which means it uses the MAC address to determine the address. So if you look down here, you'll see AE8 is what that address ends in. And if we look at our loopback interface, we'll also see that ends in AE8. Loopback also uses UEI64 for auto configuration. That leaves us with a temporary address. Temporary addresses are handled by SLAAC. Usually Windows will give them random host portions of the address instead of using UEI64. You can have a lot of temporary addresses on any given machine, individual processes can spin up their own temporary addresses. So this way a machine can reach out to the internet and they can communicate, but when traffic comes back, if it decides it doesn't want that, it'll just get rid of it. You can see this here. The temporary lease is approximately 24 hours, while the public lease is approximately a week, and DHCP is a little bit longer than that. So those are our 4 different types of IPv6 leases. We have public, which is SLAAC. We have DHCP, which is DHCPv6. We have temporary, which is temporary and creative individual programs. And we have other, which is your link local address. So that's how we set up a Windows domain using DHCP and SLAAC. Now, how do we turn off SLAAC? I'll show you. Back in here at the Juniper, we're going to edit this prefix we just made. So we're going to edit prefix. All right, now from here, we're going to do a set no autonomous. We're going to commit. What no autonomous does is it sets a flag inside of the router advertisement that tells it to use SLAAC. Actually, as a matter of fact, I have an image of what this flag looks like. Here's a document I created. I'm linking to this down below. But here's what a router advertisement looks like. It's this bit right here, the A bit, the autonomous address configuration. That's what we just disabled in the Juniper. And that tells the router advertisement to tell clients, we don't want to do autonomous configuration or SLAAC. So let's hop back out of here and look at these clients and see what they're doing now. You'll see we still have all the same IP addresses as previous. You can see we'll still have multiple there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an ipconfig release. And an ipconfig renew. Wrong command. Let's do an ipconfig/all. Set no autonomous. Oh, you know what? We actually have to reboot this entire machine. Let's go ahead and take a minute to do that. We're going to reboot this Windows virtual machine. All right, cool. While that's rebooting, I'm going to show this. I'm going to link to this down below. I have these Juniper configs in here that I used. I also have this document that I created for this. I think this is a pretty useful document. It's going to have a lot more than what's in the video. It's kind of hard to make videos about these things. So I wanted to share this as well for anybody who's curious or interested. Feel free to share this and modify this as you see fit. Also feel free to correct me where you see fit. I guarantee it's not all correct, but it's pretty correct. Also include examples of different types of packets, and what's important, you can see everything that's down in there. By the way, we're going to go ahead and let this finish booting. I'm also going to create a portable project file for this and upload it there. So if that's something you'd like as well, you're welcome to use it. I'm going to include links to all this in the description below. Now for the question of will it load? The answer is hopefully. Let's recheck on our releases over here. Everything should be the same. Yeah. Everything's exactly the same. So we'll see down in here, even though this is statically configured and we didn't configure a default gateway, we now see a default gateway of the loopback address of the Juniper. The router advertisement will always send out the default gateway, regardless of whether your machine's statically SLAAC or DHCPv6. But that's one of the features of DHCPv6 is it doesn't include the default gateway, so you do have to configure the router for that. Alright, we got this bad boy back up. Let's open it back up. Let's attempt to open it back up. There we go. If you remember the password from earlier, if not, I'll put it down the bottom. Here's the password. Capital PASSW0RD. We're going to go ahead and log in. And we're going to open PowerShell. Now, when we look at ipconfig, we should only see one IPv6 address and a link local. I may be wrong about that, but I hope I'm not. Alright, ipconfig /all. We'll give that just a second to load. So if you're doing this inside of GNS3, one cool feature is you can always start a packet capture. Then it'll open up inside of Wireshark. And you can see everything that you're downloading, everything that's being captured right here. So we can close that. That's a nice little feature. It's very great for troubleshooting. Alright, back to the VNC. That's the Windows server. There we go. Now we only see one IPv6 address. It's 9E05. Let's come over here and check. And that's one we have a lease for. And just to double check, we're going to look at netsh one more time. Cool. Now all we have is DHCP and other, which we know to be our link local address. I hope this video has been helpful. My name's been Jameis. If you look down in the description, I'll include links to the GitHub where I have all this documentation posted. I highly recommend reading it over. There's a lot of good information in there. Feel free to redistribute it or edit it or correct it where it's wrong. And yeah. Appreciate your time and have a great day.